The only light is the sliver of a crescent moon, and it does you no favors. It catches on the slick, black mud that tries to steal your boots with every step, and it gleams, just for a moment, on the cold metal of the press hidden deep within the belly of the mill. The air is a strange, intoxicating cocktail. It's the smell of a forest after rain, damp earth, decaying leaves, the sharp, clean scent of pine resin, but it's layered with something else. Something acrid and man-made. It's the smell of ink, so thick you can almost taste it on the back of your tongue, a secret shared on the wind. Hi, Guy. Tonight, we delve into the hidden heart of 1776, a year that shaped a nation. You're knee-deep in mud, outside a secluded lumber mill, the air thick with secrets and the scent of pine. Tonight, you're witnessing the clandestine printing of a revolutionary pamphlet, a spark that could ignite a continent. This isn't the clean, heroic history you read in books. This is the messy, terrifying reality of it. The truth is, people who did things like this, well, they rarely got to see the future they were fighting for. You probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You feel the chill wind against your face, the weight of the secrets heavy in your hands. The rough-hewn timber of the mill stands as a silent guardian to this moment that will shake the foundations of an empire. You watch as Theodosia Cooper carefully checks the freshly printed pamphlets, each sheet a potential beacon of freedom or a death warrant. She moves with the quiet efficiency of someone who lives their life in the wild. Theodosia is a trapper by trade, more at home with the silence of the woods than the clatter of a printing press. But tonight, she is the nerve center of this operation. Her fingers, usually stained with earth and animal musk, are smudged with black ink. You watch her hold a sheet up to the weak lamplight, trickling from a shuttered window. Her brow is furrowed, not with confusion, but with an intense, impatient focus. She reads the words, her lips moving silently, as if testing their weight. Words like tyranny, liberty, mankind. Words that could get every single person here hanged for treason. She gives a sharp, satisfied nod, the motion quick and decisive. "It'll do," she murmurs, her voice a low rumble that barely disturbs the air. "Stack them. Dry ones on the bottom, careful with the fresh ones." Her gaze flicks to you, friendly but firm, a silent command that you're glad to obey. The impatience is clear in the way she taps her foot against the damp floorboards, a quiet, rhythmic beat of anxiety. She's motivated, yes, but she also wants this dangerous work to be over. You help her gather the stacks of paper. The pamphlet is called The Common Thread, and the paper feels fragile, almost alive in your hands. Each sheet crackles with a dry, electric energy. It's still slightly damp, the ink smelling metallic and raw. You work in near silence. The only sounds the soft shush of paper on paper and the distant rhythmic groan of the water wheel outside. A sound that has, for tonight, become the heartbeat of a revolution. A grizzled man named Elias, the printer, works the press with a heavy sigh, his face a mask of exhaustion and fear, but his hands are steady. He doesn't look up. He knows the less he sees, the less he can be forced to say. Once the last viable copy is stacked and bundled in oilcloth, Theodosia motions for you to follow. She extinguishes the main lamp with a pinch of her fingers, plunging the mill's interior into a profound darkness, broken only by the thin moonlight leaking through the cracks in the walls. You step back out into the night, and the cool, clean air feels like a blessing after the ink-choked room. She moves ahead of you, her worn leather boots making almost no sound on the muddy path. You, on the other hand, sound like a hog in a wallow, and you wince at every slip and squelch. She leads you away from the mill, deeper into the woods that border the property. The trees here are old, their branches forming a dense canopy that blots out the sky. It's a darkness so complete it feels physical, like wading through black water. But Theodosia navigates it as if it were broad daylight, her hand occasionally brushing against a familiar trunk to guide her way. She carries the bundle of pamphlets, holding them against her chest like a newborn child. After a few minutes of tense, silent walking, you see a flicker of light ahead. A single, hooded lantern resting on a fallen log. Standing beside it is a man. He's tall and lean, dressed not in the rough spun of a woodsman or a miller, but in the fine, dark coat of a town dweller. Even in the dim light, his posture radiates a quiet confidence that seems entirely out of place in this damp, clandestine meeting. This is Jabez Bell, a clerk of the court, and, as you know all too well, Theodosia's cousin. "Theo," he says, his voice a calm, measured baritone. He doesn't look surprised to see you with her. He simply nods in your direction, a flicker of acknowledgement in his eyes. "Jabez," she replies, her tone softening ever so slightly. The impatience in her posture eases, replaced by a weary sort of relief. "You came alone?" Quote. "Of course I came alone," he says, with a hint of a confident smile. "Did you think I'd bring the magistrate? Though I dare say he'd be quite interested in your evening's reading material." He gestures to the bundle in her arms. There's a familial ease between them, but it's stretched thin tonight, pulled taut by the gravity of their actions. This isn't just a political risk. It's a betrayal of one world for the promise of another, and they are tying their family's fate directly to it. Theodosia doesn't smile back. She shifts her weight, glancing around the dark woods. "It's not a time for jests. Is it safe?" Quote. "As safe as it can be," Jabez assures her, his confidence a stark contrast to her nervous energy. He steps closer, lowering his voice. "The patrols are keeping to the main roads. They're looking for deserters, not pamphleteers, at least for now." He reaches out, and Theodosia hands him the oilcloth bundle. His gloved fingers brush against hers, a silent, fleeting moment of shared conspiracy. "How many?" Quote. 200, she says. "Elias's press is slow, and his nerve is just about shot." Quote. Suddenly, from high above, there's a sharp, guttural cry. A raven, disturbed from its roost, launches into the night. Its massive black wings beat against the air, and for a split second, its shadow passes over the lantern, plunging the small clearing into absolute darkness. You all freeze. The world is utterly silent, save for the frantic pounding of your own heart in your ears. Then, a sound from the forest to your left. Snap. It's unmistakable. The sharp, clean crack of a dry twig breaking under a heavy foot. Your muscles lock. Every instinct screams at you to run, to melt back into the suffocating darkness you just came from. You look at Theodosia. Her hand is now resting on the hilt of the skinning knife at her belt, her friendly face hardened into a mask of cold resolve. Jabez, for the first time, loses his confident air. His eyes are wide, darting towards the sound, his body perfectly still. He is a man of paper and law, not of sudden violence in the woods. The air, which was cool moments ago, now feels heavy and close, thick with unspoken fear. You feel a chill trace a path down your spine, a cold dread that has nothing to do with the night air. Someone is out there. Someone is watching. And in 1776, in the dark woods outside a rebel press, a witness is the one thing you can't afford. Theodosia doesn't move a muscle, but you see the subtle shift in her stance. Her body coils like a spring, her weight settling onto the balls of her feet. The skinning knife remains in its sheath, but her hand hovers, a breath away from the worn leather handle. Jabez, beside you, has gone rigid. The confident clerk has vanished, replaced by a man acutely aware that his fine coat and legal arguments are useless against a blade or a musket ball in the dark. The raven's cry echoes and fades, leaving a silence so profound you can hear the blood drumming in your ears. The woods are holding their breath, and you are holding yours right along with them. Slowly, deliberately, Theodosia takes a single, silent step forward, placing her foot with the practiced grace of a predator. She tilts her head, listening. The forest floor is a carpet of damp leaves and moss, a treacherous place to move without a sound, yet the noise was so distinct, so careless. It wasn't the sound of a hunter. It was the sound of someone who didn't know, or didn't care, if they were heard. Another sound comes, closer this time. A heavy, snuffling sound, followed by the rustle of undergrowth. It's not a man. The tension in Theodosia's shoulders releases in a slow, controlled exhale. She gives a nearly imperceptible shake of her head. A moment later, a large, bristly shape ambles past the edge of the lantern light. A wild boar, rooting through the leaf litter for acorns, oblivious to the human drama it just interrupted. It snorts once more and disappears into the gloom. Jabez lets out a breath he seems to have been holding since the twig first snapped. It comes out as a shaky, almost laugh. God's teeth, Theo. For a moment, I thought. He doesn't finish, wiping a gloved hand across his brow. The fine wool of his coat suddenly looks very thin. There are other predators in these woods besides boars, Theodosia says, her voice flat. The knife is forgotten, but the hardness hasn't left her eyes. She turns back to him, her patience worn to a thread. The longer we stand here jawing, the greater the chance we meet one. We move. Now. Quote. She snatches the lantern from the log, shrouding most of its light with her cloak, leaving just enough to illuminate the path at your feet. She leads the way, not back towards the mill, but on a perpendicular path that hugs a shallow, gurgling creek. You follow, with Jabez close behind, the oilcloth bundle of pamphlets clutched tightly in his arm. The close call has rattled him. His confident stride is gone, replaced by the cautious, clumsy steps of a man deep in hostile territory. The journey is a tense ballet of whispers and shadows. Every snapped twig, every hoot of a distant owl, sends a fresh spike of adrenaline through you. This is the network in motion. It isn't grand speeches and charging horses. It's this. It's mud and fear, and the desperate hope that the person you're meeting is the right one. Theodosia stops at a massive, lightning-scarred oak tree, its base hollowed out by age and rot. She gives a low, soft whistle, the precise two-note call of a mourning dove. For a long moment there is no reply. The only sound is the creak and Jabez's strained breathing. You feel a familiar knot of dread tighten in your stomach. A mistake. A miscalculation. Someone didn't show. But then, a reply comes from the darkness, a perfect echo of her call. From behind a thicket of ferns, a figure emerges. It's a woman, old and stooped, carrying a basket. In the faint light, you recognize her as Martha, a midwife from the village outskirts, known for her sharp tongue and her knowledge of herbal remedies. She looks from Theodosia to Jabez, her gaze lingering on the bundle he carries. She says nothing, simply setting her basket down and lifting the linen cloth that covers it. Jabez understands. He kneels, unties the bundle of pamphlets, and carefully places a thick stack, perhaps a third of the total, amongst the bundles of dried herbs and roots in Martha's basket. He works quickly, his hands fumbling slightly. He makes a small mistake, dropping a few sheets into the damp moss. Martha clicks her tongue in annoyance, snatching them up and wiping them clean before tucking them safely away. A small error, but out here, it feels enormous. She covers the pamphlets with her linen cloth, picks up her basket, and gives a single, curt nod. Without another word, she melts back into the woods, just another old woman gathering simples in the night. The uphill battle. You've won the first small skirmish. The rest are for the town, Jabez murmurs, retying the smaller bundle. From here, I know the way. Theodosia doesn't argue. The forest is her domain, but the warren of colonial streets is his. The three of you press on, leaving the relative safety of the trees. The ground becomes firmer, the muddy trail giving way to a packed earth road that leads toward the distant, sleeping town. The air changes. The clean scent of pine and damp earth replaced by the smell of wood smoke, livestock, and the faint, brackish scent of the harbor. You enter the town through a narrow alleyway between a cooperage and a tannery, the smells thick and overwhelming. The main street is quiet, but not empty. A pair of red-coated soldiers share a bottle on the steps of the public house, their laughter loud in the stillness. A lone rider clatters past on the cobblestones. Every shadow seems to hold a threat. Every curtained window seems to hide a pair of watching eyes. Your path takes you past the town's most prosperous storefront. Unlike the other shuttered shops, this one has a lamp burning in the front window, illuminating the fine china, imported fabrics, and polished silver within. Ward's Mercantile is written in elegant gold leaf on the sign hanging above the door. And standing on the top step, slowly sweeping the porch with a birch broom, is Hiram Ward. He is a portly man, his face clean-shaven and florid, his lips set in a permanent, thin-lipped purse of disapproval. He wears a waistcoat of expensive brocade, even at this late hour. He doesn't look at the soldiers or the rider. His eyes, small and shrewd, are fixed directly on the three of you as you approach. You feel his gaze like a physical touch, cold and probing. You are in a trap. This is it. As you draw level, he stops sweeping. The scraping sound ceases, and the silence is suddenly accusatory. "Clerk Bell," he says. His voice is surprisingly soft, yet it carries with an unnerving clarity. "Keeping late hours." and with company. His gaze slides to Theodosia, and you see a flicker of distaste. He looks at her worn buckskins and the mud caking her boots as if she were something unpleasant he'd found on his shoe. "Mistress Cooper, I'm surprised to see you so far from your snares. Surely there are no beavers to be found on King Street." Quote, "There are vermin of all sorts in this town, Master Ward," Theodosia replies, her voice tight. Her hand, you notice, has once again drifted to rest near the hilt of her knife. Jabez steps slightly in front of her, forcing a placid smile. "Hiram, a lovely evening. Theo was simply guiding me through the woods. I took a foolish shortcut from the circuit court session and lost my way." It's a plausible lie, delivered with Jabez's courtroom confidence. But Ward's eyes don't believe it. They flick down, just for a second, to the oilcloth bundle Jabez is trying to conceal behind his back. Then they move to Jabez's cuff, where a faint, dark smudge mars the white linen, an ink stain. You see the moment Ward registers it. A tiny, almost imperceptible tightening around his eyes, a flicker of something that looks like triumph. He knows. He might not know what it is, but he knows it's a secret. "Is that so?" Ward says, his voice dripping with false sincerity. He leans on his broom, a picture of leisurely suspicion. One must be so careful in the woods these days, and in the town. Dangerous ideas spreading like a pox. Seditious whispers. One hears things. He looks from Jabez's face to Theodosia's, then to yours, his gaze lingering, memorizing. "But I'm sure a man of the law and a simple trapper would know nothing of such matters. Do get home safely." He turns and resumes his sweeping, the rhythmic scrape, scrape, scrape of the broom on the wooden steps, following you down the street. The sound feels like a judgment, a countdown. You don't look back, but you can feel his eyes on you, a burning weight between your shoulder blades. The trap has been sprung. You are seen. You are known. Jabez is pale, the sweat on his brow now cold with fear, not exertion. "He knows," he whispers, his voice strained. He saw nothing," Theodosia cuts in, her voice a fierce low hiss. "He suspects. It's not the same thing. Finish it." Quote. Her words galvanize him. With a last furtive look over his shoulder, he leads you down another narrow lane to the back door of the apothecary. He gives a specific, coded knock, 3 quick taps, a pause, then 2 more. The door cracks open and a hand emerges, grabbing the bundle without a word before retreating. The door clicks shut. The lock slides home. It's over. The last of the 200 pamphlets are safely in the network's hands. By morning, the common thread will be passed from hand to hand, read in taverns and stables and parlors, its words fanning the embers of rebellion. You have succeeded. But as you stand in the dark alley, the scent of medicinal herbs mixing with the damp night air, it doesn't feel like a victory. Ward's menacing gaze is imprinted on your mind. The danger has a face now. The uphill battle has just become steeper, the path ahead shrouded in a far more menacing darkness than that of the woods. The victory, if you can call it that, is a bitter ash on your tongue. The back alley door is shut, the pamphlets are gone, but the danger is now a living, breathing thing with a name and a face. Hiram Ward. His smug, knowing look is seared into your mind as you follow Theodosia and Jabez back into the labyrinth of darkened streets. The scrape of his broom replays in your head, a sound that has transformed from a mundane chore into the sharpening of a blade. Jabez is a man unmade. The confident clerk who met you in the woods is gone, replaced by a ghost who flinches at every stray cat and scurrying rat. The oilcloth bundle is gone, but he still clutches his arm as if he feels its phantom weight. He stumbles on a loose cobblestone, and only Theodosia's quick, firm grip on his elbow keeps him from falling. "He knows, Theo," Jabez whispers again, his voice cracking. The sound is wet with terror. "That damned ink stain. I should have worn my darker coat. Fool. I'm a fool." "Quiet," Theodosia commands, her voice a low growl. She pulls him into the deeper shadow of an awning. Her face is grim in the sliver of moonlight, her friendly demeanor stripped away, leaving only hardened resolve. But you see past it. You see the subtle tremor in her hand as she releases his arm. You see the way her gaze softens for just a fraction of a second as she looks at her cousin's pale, frightened face. This is the part of the revolution they don't write about in the pamphlets. The fear that eats at you from the inside out, especially when it's for someone you love. The weight of her choice to involve him is pressing down on her, a burden heavier than any bundle of paper. "He suspects," she says, her voice more measured now, gentler. Suspecting isn't proving. You are a clerk of the court, Jabez. Act like one. Go home. Sleep in your own bed. Go to your work in the morning. Do not run. Do not hide. Do nothing different. Your fear will hang you faster than any noose. Quote, "And you?" he asks, his voice barely audible. "I'll be in the woods," she says simply, as if it's the only answer that makes sense. It's harder to be followed where there are no roads. She gives him a firm, final nod, a silent dismissal. He hesitates, opens his mouth as if to say more, then seems to think better of it. He turns and scurries away into the darkness, his form swallowed by the oppressive black of the unlit street. Theodosia watches him go, her posture rigid. You feel her conflict as if it were your own. Every fiber of her being, the loyal cousin, wants to run after him, to find a way to undo this, to shove him onto a ship bound for somewhere safe. But the revolutionary, the impatient believer in the common thread, forces her to stand still, to let him walk into the lion's den, wearing the scent of rebellion like a cheap perfume. The weight of his safety is now a stone in her gut. She turns to you, her eyes dark with a pain she will not speak aloud. Let's go. The sun will be up soon. The next 2 days are a study in controlled anxiety. You stick close to Theodosia, watching as she goes about her trapper's duties with a terrifying, hollow focus. She moves through the forest, her home, but there's no peace for her here now. Every rustle of leaves makes her hand drop to her knife. Every bird call seems to be a coded signal. She is hunting, but not for mink or fox. She's hunting for signs of Hiram Ward's reach. You help her check a snare line along a creek bed, and she finds a perfect beaver pelt, a prize that would normally bring a rare smile to her face. Today she barely glances at it, her eyes scanning the opposite bank, searching for anything out of place. The cause she fights for demands sacrifice, but you are witnessing the personal toll, the way it corrodes a person's soul, replacing friendliness with suspicion and motivation with a gnawing dread. Meanwhile, the town buzzes. You hear it when she makes a quick, necessary trip to the edge of the village for salt and flour. 2 men on a barrelhead stop talking when you approach. A woman in the market square gives Theodosia a long, searching look before giving the barest hint of a nod. The common thread is working. Its words are spreading like a fever, invisible and potent. And with that success, the danger grows exponentially. Ward's Mercantile seems to have more visitors than usual. Men in fine coats who don't look like they're shopping for fabric, their eyes scanning the street with a predatory stillness. On the 3rd evening, the message comes. It's delivered by a young boy, the son of the blacksmith, who slips a folded, dirty piece of paper into Theodosia's hand as she buys nails. The boy's eyes are wide with the thrill and terror of his role, and he's gone before she can say a word. She waits until you are deep in the sanctuary of the pines before she unfolds it. You read it over her shoulder by the failing light. It's written in a crude hand, the letters clumsy and urgent. It speaks of a shipment of muskets, waylaid from a British supply wagon, hidden and waiting for collection. It's a prize beyond reckoning, a cache of weapons that could arm a local militia. But it's the final lines that make the blood in your veins run cold. We need a guide who knows the swamp south of the creek, and someone who can draft a bill of sale to make the transport look legitimate. The clerk and the trapper. Be at the old miller's barn at moonrise. Come alone. It's bait. So obvious, so perfectly tailored, it feels like an insult. It's him, you whisper, the words catching in your throat. I know, Theodosia breathes, her knuckles white as she crumples the note in her fist. The paper crackles, a sound like dying embers. Her internal war is raging on her face. Her loyalty to the cause screams at her. Muskets, the single most valuable asset they could acquire. But the plea for the clerk is a direct threat to Jabez. Ward isn't just trying to catch a rebel. He's trying to catch her rebel, the one he saw her with. He is using her love for her cousin as the jaws of the trap. She sends a message to Jabez, a simple summons. He meets you an hour later at the lightning-scarred oak, and he looks like he hasn't slept in days. His face is gaunt, his eyes hollowed out. When Theodosia shows him the note, a choked, desperate sound escapes his lips. No, Theo, absolutely not, he says, backing away. It's Ward. It has to be. A bill of sale? For stolen muskets? It's madness! He's dangling my life in front of you. And if it isn't, she counters, though her voice lacks its usual conviction. If there are men with guns waiting for our help, and we leave them to be captured because we are afraid, quote, "It is better to be afraid than to be hanged," Jabez hisses, his courtroom poise completely gone, replaced by raw panic. "He saw us. He smelled the ink on me, I know he did. This is the trap he's been building for 3 days. You can't ask me to walk into it." Quote, you watch Theodosia. Her impatience wars with her caution. Her duty wars with her heart. She looks at Jabez, truly looks at his terrified face, and for a moment you think she will relent. You see the deep, aching desire to protect him, to tell him to run and hide until this is all over, but then her gaze hardens. The cause is a fire in her, and it burns away all other considerations. She cannot show weakness, not now. "You won't walk into it," she says, her tone leaving no room for argument. "I will. I'll go ahead. I'll scout the barn. I know that land better than I know my own face. If there's a single man hiding, if there's one blade of grass bent the wrong way, I will see it. I will not let him take you, Jabez." Her words are a promise, both to him and to herself. A desperate vow to somehow have it both ways, to serve the revolution and save her family. She turns and melts into the twilight, leaving you and a trembling Jabez behind. She instructed you to wait half an hour, then bring him along the creek path to wait for her signal, the 2-note call of the mourning dove. If the call doesn't come, you are to take Jabez and run. The wait is agonizing. Every minute stretches into an eternity. Jabez paces, muttering to himself, wringing his hands. Finally, with the moon beginning to rise over the treetops, you lead him toward the rendezvous. The old miller's barn stands in a clearing, a skeletal silhouette against the night sky. The air is still, too still. As you approach the edge of the trees, you hear it, the soft 2-note whistle of a mourning dove. Relief washes over Jabez so powerfully his knees almost buckle. He grasps your arm. She's there. It's safe. He starts to step out from the cover of the trees, but you hold him back. Something is wrong. The call was perfect, but it came from the wrong direction. Not from the high ground behind the barn where a scout would be, but from down low, near the barn door itself. A flicker of movement near the barn's gaping maw catches your eye. It's Theodosia. She's stepping out into the moonlight, waving you forward. And then you see it. A dark shape behind her, in the deeper shadow of the doorway. You see the glint of a musket barrel leveled directly at her back. You see the faint outline of other men, positioned in the hayloft behind a broken-down wagon. The bird call wasn't her signal, it was theirs. It was the final lure to bring the rabbit out of its warren. Before you can even scream a warning, a smooth, confident voice cuts through the night, a voice you recognize with a sickening jolt. "Don't be shy, Clerk Bell," calls Hiram Ward, stepping out from behind the barn, a pistol held casually in his hand. He is smiling, a truly unpleasant sight. "Mistress Cooper was just telling us how much she values loyalty. Come and join the party, we have so much to discuss." Theodosia doesn't turn. Her body is rigid, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Her plan has failed. Her woodcraft was not enough. In trying to protect her cousin, she has led them both into the snare. The trap is sprung. You are surrounded, exposed in the cold, unforgiving moonlight, with nowhere left to run. The world shrinks to the clearing, illuminated by the cold, impartial light of the moon. Hiram Ward's voice, slick with triumph, hangs in the air, a poison that paralyzes. Beside you, Jabez makes a small, strangled sound, a mix of a sob and a gasp. His fear is a tangible thing, a cold fog rolling off him. Theodosia stands impossibly still, a statue carved from defiance, the musket barrel, a black punctuation mark against her back. The men in the shadows are tensing, their shapes hardening as they anticipate the final, satisfying click of the trap. Time stretches and thins. In that horrifying, drawn-out moment, you see everything. You see the smug certainty on Ward's face. You see the way the man behind Theodosia shifts his weight, his knuckles white on the stock of his weapon. You see Jabez, a man of words and reason, utterly broken by a reality that has no respect for either. And you see Theodosia's eyes. They flick, just once, not to Ward, not to Jabez, but to a stack of rotting rain barrels piled precariously against the barn's crumbling side wall, right next to where Ward is standing. A flicker of an idea, a desperate, suicidal gamble. Before Ward can utter another word, Theodosia acts. It's not a large movement, but it is brutally fast. She drops to one knee as if her legs have given out, a motion of pure surrender. The man behind her, caught off guard by the sudden change in elevation, grunts in surprise, the musket barrel jerking upwards for a fraction of a second. It's all the time she needs. Her hand, which had been resting near her knife, now holds a small, flat stone you didn't even see her palm. With an underhand flick of her wrist, honed by years of skipping stones across silent ponds, she sends it flying. The stone strikes the metal hoop of the top barrel with a sharp, resonant clang that shatters the night silence. It's not the sound that matters. It's the vibration. The teetering pile of wood and rusted iron wobbles for a heartbeat, then collapses with a thunderous crash of splintering staves and rolling wood. Now! Theodosia's voice is a raw command that rips through the chaos. Ward yelps and leaps back as the barrel rolls toward his expensive boots. His men flinch, their eyes drawn to the sudden explosion of noise and motion. In that single chaotic second, Theodosia lunges. Not forward, but sideways, rolling on the damp earth. The musket behind her fires with a deafening roar, the ball tearing through the space where she was a moment before. She comes up on her feet with the skinning knife in her hand, not as a weapon to kill, but as a tool to create space. She slashes upwards, not at the man, but at the leather strap of his powder horn, severing it. He bellows in frustration as it tumbles to the ground. You don't wait for a second command. Pure animal instinct takes over. You grab Jabez's arm. It feels thin and brittle, like a bird's wing, and you pull, hard. He stumbles, his mind still trapped in the frozen terror of the clearing, but his legs begin to move. The three of you plunge from the damning moonlight into the welcoming, absolute black of the forest's edge. Another musket shot rings out, the ball whining past your ear with a sound like an angry hornet. Then you are in the trees, and the world is a frantic, vertical blur of trunks and grasping branches. The forest floor is a minefield of roots and loose stones. You gasp for air, your lungs on fire, the adrenaline singing a high, terrifying note in your ears. Theodosia is in the lead, her form a fleeting shadow that you struggle to follow. She moves with a certainty that seems impossible, her feet finding purchase where you slip and slide. Behind you, you hear shouts of anger and the sounds of men crashing through the undergrowth. They are clumsy, loud, townsfolk, not woodsmen. But they are armed, and they are furious. This way! Theodosia hisses, her voice strained. She veers sharply to the right, toward the sound of gurgling water. The creek. You half-drag, half-shove Jabez along. His breath comes in ragged, panicked sobs. He is a liability, a dead weight of terror. But Theodosia never slows, never considers leaving him. Her loyalty, the very thing Ward tried to use against her, is now the engine of this desperate flight. You burst through a thicket of thorns that tear at your clothes and skin and find yourselves on the bank of the shallow creek. The water is black and frigid, but it's your only hope. In, Theodosia commands, not even breaking stride as she splashes into the current. Move upstream, it'll hide our tracks, our scent. The shock of the cold water steals your breath and numbs your feet, but it also clears your head. You pull Jabez in after you. He cries out as the icy water swirls around his knees, and Theodosia silences him with a look of pure, unadulterated fury. Be quiet, or I'll leave you for the hounds, she whispers, the threat more potent than any shout. You stumble through the creek, the smooth, slick rocks trying to turn your ankles. The sounds of pursuit grow more organized behind you. You hear a whistle, a command being relayed. Then, a new sound joins the chase, a sound that chills you deeper than the water. The baying of dogs. Faster, Theodosia grunts, her own breathing now labored. You push on for what feels like an eternity, the water dragging at your legs, your muscles screaming in protest. The dogs sound closer now, their eager cries echoing through the trees. Just as you feel you can't take another step, Theodosia shoves you toward the bank. Here, now. She points to a massive, fallen oak, its roots ripped from the earth to create a deep, dark hollow underneath the bank shrouded by a curtain of trailing moss. It's a dank, cramped space, barely big enough for one, let alone three. Get in, she orders, pushing Jabez toward the opening. He scrambles into the muddy cavity without hesitation. You follow, squeezing yourself into the tight space, the smell of damp earth and decay filling your nostrils. Theodosia slides in last, pulling the curtain of moss back into place. You are pressed together in the suffocating darkness. Jabez is shaking uncontrollably, his teeth chattering from cold and fear. Theodosia puts a firm hand on his shoulder, a silent command to be still. Through a tiny gap in the moss, you see the flicker of lanterns approaching. The baying of the hounds grows frenzied. They are on the opposite bank, sniffing wildly where you first entered the water. A red-coated soldier appears, his uniform a bloody slash against the dark woods. "They went in the water here," he yells. "Spread out! Check both banks!" Quote. You hold your breath. The world is reduced to the sound of your own frantic heartbeat, the chattering of Jabez's teeth, and the terrifyingly close sounds of your hunters. A hound splashes into the creek, its barking echoing directly outside your hiding spot. You can hear it sniffing, whining. You squeeze your eyes shut, praying to a god you're not sure you believe in. This is it. This is the end. "What is it, boy?" a voice calls, rough and impatient. "Find something." Quote. The dog gives one last, frustrated yelp and then moves on, its attention drawn by a scent further downstream. The lanterns recede. The voices fade. After a silence that stretches for an age, you are left alone with the sound of the creek and the pounding of your own blood. You remain in the hollow for a long time, listening. Theodosia is the first to move, cautiously pushing aside the moss and peering out. "They're gone," she whispers, her voice hoarse with exhaustion. "For now." You crawl out, your limbs stiff and caked with mud. The moon is high now, casting long, skeletal shadows through the canopy. The immediate danger has passed, but a new, more daunting problem presents itself. Where do you go? You are fugitives. Every hand could be turned against you. Jabez collapses onto the damp ground, his face buried in his hands. "We're done for," he moans. "There's nowhere to go. Ward will have patrols on every road, a bounty on our heads by morning." Quote. "Stop it," Theodosia says, her voice lacking its earlier fire, replaced by a weary resolve. She is thinking, her gaze distant. The impatient woman is gone, replaced by a calculating survivor. "My cabin is watched. Your house is a death trap. The mill is compromised." She looks at you, then back at her cousin. "We need the network." "Not Martha. They'll expect us to go to her. We need someone they won't suspect." Quote. She straightens up, a decision made. "Silas," she says. The name a stone dropped into the quiet. "The blacksmith." "Silas?" Jabez looks up, his face a mask of disbelief. "He's a good man, but he has a wife, a child. He won't risk them for us. He can't." "His son brought me the note from Ward," Theodosia says, her logic cold and clear. "Ward used the boy, thinking we wouldn't trace it back. But it means Silas is already involved, whether he likes it or not. He has no choice but to help us. And his forge, it burns all night. No one will question smoke from his chimney or noise from his workshop." Quote. It's a grim calculation, leveraging one man's forced complicity to ensure your own survival. This is the new currency of your lives. You follow her as she sets off, sticking to the shadows, moving in a wide, careful arc toward the faint glow of the town. The journey is a nightmare of skulking through backfields and crawling through ditches, every dog's bark sending a fresh wave of terror through you. You finally reach the edge of the blacksmith's property. The main house is dark, but the forge next to it glows with a low, sullen red light and the rhythmic clink. Clink. Clink of a hammer on cooling metal echoes softly in the night. Theodosia leads you to a small side door on the workshop away from the street. She pauses, her hand raised, listening. Then she gives a quiet, specific knock. 2 quick taps, a pause, then a single, heavy one. The hammering inside stops. Silence. You wait, your nerves screaming. For a terrible moment, you think no one is coming. That you chose wrong. Then, you hear the scrape of a bolt being drawn. The door opens a mere crack, and a single bloodshot eye peers out. It's Silas. He is a mountain of a man, his face smudged with soot and etched with worry. He sees Theodosia. Then his gaze falls on the mud-streaked, terrified face of Jabez, and finally on you. You see fear war with duty in his eyes. He starts to shake his head to close the door. "Silas," Theodosia says, her voice low and desperate. "He used your boy. He sent us to a trap. They're hunting us." The mention of his son makes him freeze. The fight goes out of his eyes, replaced by a deep, resonant despair. He knows she is right. He is already caught in the same net. With a heavy, defeated sigh, he pulls the door open just wide enough for you to slip through. "Get in," he rasps. "Quickly, before you bring hell down on my doorstep." He bolts the door behind you and leads you not toward the house, but across the packed earth floor of the forge. The air is thick with the smell of coal smoke and hot iron. In the center of the floor is a heavy, iron-strapped trapdoor you would never have noticed. He strains, lifting it to reveal a set of steep, stone steps, leading down into absolute blackness. "It's a root cellar," he says, his voice flat. "It's cold. It's damp. But no one knows it's here. Stay here, don't make a sound. I'll bring what I can when it's safe." Jabez scrambles down the steps without a word. You follow, your feet finding the worn stone. Theodosia looks at Silas, a world of gratitude and apology passing between them in a single, shared glance. Then she descends, pulling you the rest of the way down. Silas looks down at you all, his face a grim portrait of a man whose life has just been irrevocably complicated. Then he lowers the heavy door. The last sliver of forge light vanishes, and you are plunged into a profound, chilling darkness. The trapdoor settles into place with a solid, final thud that echoes in the small space. The sound of the lock sliding home above you is the sound of a cage door closing. You are safe for now. But you are also trapped, buried alive in the dark heart of the revolution, with the weight of the whole world pressing down from above. The darkness is a physical presence, a cold, damp weight that presses in from all sides. It smells of soil, of rot, of stone that has never seen the sun. The air is so still you can feel the vibrations when Jabez shudders beside you, a constant, low-frequency tremor of pure terror. Your own breath sounds impossibly loud in the silence, a ragged counterpoint to the frantic drumming of your heart. Above, the thud of the trapdoor was the sound of a tomb being sealed. You are buried. Time loses all meaning. It is measured not in minutes or hours, but in the frantic cycles of your own thoughts, in the shifting of weight on the cold stone floor as your muscles cramp. Theodosia is a statue of calm beside you, a stark contrast to her cousin's near collapse. You can't see her, but you can sense her stillness, the controlled breathing of a hunter in a blind. She is not panicking. She is waiting. The impatient energy that usually crackles around her has been banked, transformed into a focused, predatory patience. Jabez, however, is coming undone. "We're going to die here," he whispers, his voice a dry rasp. "They'll leave us here to rot." "Be still!" Theodosia's voice cuts through the darkness, not loud but sharp as flint. "Silas is a man of his word. Your noise will betray us faster than Ward's spies." Her words are harsh, but you sense the underlying purpose, to shock him out of his spiraling fear. For a moment he is quiet, and the only sound is the drip, drip, drip of water somewhere in the oppressive black. Hours crawl by. The clinking of the hammer above you starts again, a steady, rhythmic sound that is both a comfort and a torment. It means Silas is creating a pretense of normalcy, but it also feels like the ticking of a clock, counting down to your discovery. Finally, the hammering stops. You hear the heavy scrape of the bolt above, and a rectangle of dim, red-tinged light slices through the darkness. Silas's soot-stained face peers down. "Coast is clear for the moment," he murmurs, his voice a low rumble. "Ward has the town in a panic. He's offering 50 crowns for any information on the seditious traitors." He lowers a basket on a rope. Inside is a loaf of dark bread, a wedge of hard cheese, and a skin of water. It feels like a feast. "Eat, you'll move before dawn." As you tear into the bread, your hands shaking with hunger, Silas speaks to Theodosia. "They're watching the roads, but they're looking for people on foot. They're not looking inside my charcoal delivery." He looks at Jabez, who has stopped eating, his eyes wide. "The girl, Abigail, at the draper's shop. Her cellar connects to the old smuggling tunnels under King Street. That's your next stop. She's expecting you." "Abigail?" Jabez says, his voice incredulous. "She makes waistcoats for the governor's wife. She's the last person." "Which is why she's the perfect person," Theodosia finishes for him, her mouth full of bread. She understands the logic instantly. The revolution isn't just fought in the woods and back alleys, it's thriving in the heart of the enemy's world. True to Silas's word, an hour before the first hint of dawn, the trapdoor opens again. "Time to go," he whispers. You climb out into the forge, the air still warm and thick with the smell of burnt coal. He leads you to a heavy wagon loaded with sacks of charcoal. Get in. Lie flat between the sacks. Don't make a sound, no matter what you hear. You and Jabez squeeze into the cramped space, the rough burlap scratching your skin, the black dust instantly coating you. Theodosia gets in last, positioning herself near a gap in the sacks where she can peer out. Silas throws a heavy canvas tarp over you, plunging you back into darkness. You feel the wagon lurch as he climbs into the driver's seat. With a crack of a whip and a groan of wood, you begin to move. The journey is a unique form of torture. Every bump and rut in the road jolts your bones. You hear the sounds of the town waking up. A distant cock's crow, the rumble of another wagon, the bark of a dog. Then you hear voices, sharp and authoritative. Halt! State your business. Your blood turns to ice. You hear Silas's calm, grumbling reply. Charcoal. For the public house kitchen. Quote, Bit early for a delivery, isn't it, Smithy? The voice is suspicious. A redcoat. Fire waits for no man, Silas grunts. And neither does a cook who needs a hot stove. Now, are you going to let me pass? Or do you want to explain to the governor why his breakfast is cold? Quote, There is a tense pause. You can hear the soldier walking around the wagon. His boots crunch on the gravel right next to your head. You hold your breath, certain he will lift the tarp. You feel Theodosia's body go rigid beside you. Then, a sharp rap on the side of the wagon. Move on, but be quick about it. Quote, The wagon lurches forward again. You don't dare breathe until you are several streets away. Jabez lets out a shuddering, silent sob of relief. Theodosia places a calming hand on his shoulder. The wagon finally stops in a narrow, foul-smelling alley. Silas lifts the tarp. We're here! Go to the back door! Knock once, then twice. He doesn't wait for a thank you. Simply turning the wagon and rumbling away, another vital link in the chain who has played his part and now must melt back into anonymity. You find the back door of the draper's shop, and Theodosia gives the coded knock. It opens to reveal a young woman with sharp, intelligent eyes and hands stained with dye. This is Abigail. She ushers you inside with a quick, nervous gesture. The room smells of lavender, dye, and clean linen, a world away from the forge and the cellar. Bolts of expensive fabric are stacked to the ceiling. On a table lies a half-finished gentleman's coat of rich blue velvet. They almost caught Silas at the town gate, Abigail says, her voice a low, worried hum. Ward's men are everywhere. You brought the whole hornet's nest down on us. There's no accusation in her voice, only a statement of fact. She hands you each a bundle. Clean clothes, you reek of charcoal and fear. There's a basin and water behind that screen. Quickly, we have company coming. As you wash the grime from your face and hands, you see the true nature of her operation. She points to the blue velvet coat. This is for Major Rollins. He's a gossip. While he's being fitted, he will boast of troop movements and patrol schedules. I just listen, and I remember. She picks up a spool of red thread. If I place this in the front window, it means danger on the street. Green means a friendly patrol captain is on duty. Yellow means a new shipment has arrived at the docks. It's a simple, silent language that Ward's men would never notice. Just as you finish changing, the bell on the shop's front door jingles. Abigail's face becomes a placid, welcoming mask. That's Finn, she whispers. He has news. She gestures for you to stay hidden behind a tall stack of fabric bolts as she goes to greet her visitor. Finn is a wiry, sunburnt man with calloused hands and the easy swagger of a sailor. He carries a crate of what he claims are imported French linens. But you know it's a lie. He and Abigail speak in a coded shorthand. The tides are turning, he says, which you understand means popular opinion in Boston is shifting. The Sea Serpent made port last night with a heavy cargo. Muskets. But the harbor master is asking questions. A new tax. A bribe is needed. He sees you then, peering from behind the fabric. He doesn't look surprised, only assesses you with a quick professional eye. More cargo to move, Abby? Quote, They need to stay put for now, Theodosia says, stepping out. She will not be spoken about as if she is a barrel of rum. What have you heard about Ward? Quote, Finn's easy smile vanishes. That one's a spider. He's been down at the docks himself, squeezing my lads for information. He's not just looking for you three. He's trying to unravel the whole thread. He nods toward Jabez, who is trying to make himself invisible. He's particularly interested in finding a, quote, traitorous clerk. Says there's evidence, a bill of sale. The color drains from Jabez's face. The lie they concocted about the muskets is now being used as a real weapon against him. But then, something shifts in his eyes. The terror is still there, but it's joined by a flicker of indignation, the anger of a man of letters being hunted by a brutish shopkeeper. "He has no bill of sale," Jabez says, his voice quiet but clear, "because one was never written." He's bluffing. He has an ink stain and a suspicion, and he's using it to sow fear. Quote, "It's the first time since the chase that he has sounded like himself." Theodosia gives him a look of surprise and a sliver of pride. Abigail nods. He's right. Ward's weapon is fear. So we fight him with knowledge. She pulls out a ledger from under her counter. "These are my clients. The major, the magistrate's wife, the customs official. And this," she points to a list of deliveries, "is a schedule of every guard patrol for the next week, pieced together from their idle chatter." Quote, "You stare at the book. It's not just a ledger, it's a map of your enemy's movements, a tapestry of intelligence woven from scraps of conversation and observation. This is the network. It's not just Silas's brawn or Theodosia's woodcraft. It's Abigail's sharp ears, Finn's knowledge of the tides, and Jabez's understanding of how men like Ward think. It's a quiet, sprawling organism, hidden in plain sight, its resilience found in the courage of ordinary people doing extraordinary things." Abigail turns to Jabez. "I need copies of this. My handwriting is known. Yours is not. Can you do it?" Quote. For the first time in days, Jabez stands up straight. He is no longer just cargo to be hidden. He has a purpose. "I can," he says, his voice steady. Theodosia watches the exchange, and you see the burden on her shoulders lighten, just a fraction. She came to this network seeking refuge, but you have found something more. You have found its hidden engine. The fear is still there, a cold knot in your stomach. Ward is still out there, his web tightening. But for the first time since you fled the barn, you feel the tide might just be starting to turn. You are not just running anymore, you are part of something that is fighting back. The back room of the draper's shop becomes your world. It is a cage lined with silk and damask, the air thick with the scent of lavender and the metallic tang of fear. The work begins almost immediately. Abigail clears a space on a cutting table, laying out fresh paper, a pot of ink, and a sharpened quill. For the first time since you met him, Jabez looks at home. The terror has not left his eyes, but it has retreated, making way for a familiar, scholarly focus. His hand, which trembled so violently in the dark of the root cellar, is now steady as he dips the quill and begins to copy Abigail's ledger. Each stroke is precise, elegant, a quiet act of defiance that is more his style than any midnight chase. You and Theodosia watch from the shadows of stacked linen bolts. She is a coiled spring, a predator forced into stillness, and it doesn't suit her. Her eyes, accustomed to scanning leagues of open forest, now dart around the cramped room, lingering on the barred window, the heavy back door. The motivation that drove her to the printing press is still there, but it's frustrated. Hemmed in by four walls, she trusts the woods, its clear dangers and honest truths. This world of whispers, codes, and shifting alliances is a treacherous swamp she doesn't know how to navigate. Her loyalty is to the cause, but you see now that her faith was in the simple clarity of the fight, a clarity that is rapidly dissolving. Finn the sailor returns near midday, not through the front shop, but with a quiet knock on the alley door. He brings a sack of salted fish that smells of the sea and a fresh wave of anxiety. He nods at Jabez's work, his expression unreadable, making battle plans with a shopkeeper's gossip book. He says, his tone light, but with a hard edge. He tears off a piece of fish with his teeth. "I've got 3 men in my crew with lashes on their backs from a British press gang. They don't care about your ledgers. They care about coin in their pocket and a knife to stick in a redcoat's gut." Quote, "Your men are welcome to join the fight for more than just coin," Theodosia says, her voice low. Her dislike for Finn's mercenary attitude is palpable. Finn lets out a short, barking laugh. "The fight for what, Mistress Cooper? So men like him," he jerks his chin toward Jabez, "can write new laws to tax my cargo? The king's boot or a colonial one. It feels the same on my neck. I'm in this because the crown makes it impossible to earn a living. Don't mistake me for one of you lot dreaming of a new Jerusalem. I'm just trying to keep my ship afloat." Quote. His words hang in the air, a stark reminder that this revolution is not a single, unified chorus, but a cacophony of different grievances. For Theodosia, it is about liberty. For Jabez, it is about tyranny and the rule of law. For Finn, it is about profit. You realize with a sinking feeling that a movement made of such disparate parts could easily fracture. Your pragmatism is noted, Finn, Abigail cuts in, her voice sharp as one of her needles. She steps between him and Theodosia, a diplomat in her own shop. But without this gossip book, your ship would have sailed straight into a blockade last month. We all have our part to play. And what if your information is wrong? Jabez looks up from his work, his brow furrowed. This is all hearsay, a word misheard, a boast exaggerated. You're asking us to risk our lives on what Major Rawlins's wife thinks she overheard at a dinner party. Quote, "It's better than risking our lives on nothing," Abigail retorts, her calm beginning to fray. "It's how we knew about the patrols at the miller's barn. It's how Silas knew which gate to take. It has worked, until now." "Until Ward became involved," Theodosia says, bringing the conversation back to the cold, hard point. "He's not a soldier following orders. He's a zealot. He enjoys this." The bell on the front door jingles, and you all freeze. The sound, so normal and innocuous, is now an alarm. Abigail peeks through a small hole in the curtain separating the shop from the back room. She holds up a hand, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then she seems to relax, though not entirely. "It's Master Fletcher," she whispers. "He's one of us." She smooths her apron and disappears into the shop. You hear the murmur of voices. A man's, deep and solicitous. He's a merchant. Abigail mouths to you, his name a watchword for patriot sympathies. A few minutes later she leads him into the back. Master Fletcher is a man in his 50s, with a soft, fleshy face and anxious eyes. He is dressed in a fine but well-worn coat, the very picture of a respectable merchant struggling under the crown's thumb. He clutches a broad-brimmed hat in his hands, twisting the rim nervously. "Mistress Cooper, clerk bell," he says, his gaze flicking between them. Then to you. "Abigail told me of your predicament. The whole town is buzzing. It is a terrible business. Truly terrible." He looks genuinely distressed. "I came at once. I may be able to help." Quote. A sliver of hope cuts through the gloom. "How?" Jabez asks, his voice eager. "I have a brig, the Good Intent, leaving on tomorrow morning's tide," Fletcher says, lowering his voice conspiratorially. "She's bound for Baltimore. A safe colony. My captain is reliable. The cargo is lumber, nothing the British patrols would look at twice. I can have you smuggled aboard tonight. Once you are clear of this harbor, Ward can't touch you." Quote, "The offer is a lifeline, a sudden miraculous path out of this nightmare." You see the relief wash over Jabez's face. Even Abigail seems to think it's a godsend. To be gone, to be safe, to live, to fight another day. It's everything you could hope for. But Theodosia is watching Fletcher with an unnerving stillness. Her friendly demeanor is gone, replaced by the cold, assessing gaze of a trapper examining a new kind of snare. "That's a generous offer, Master Fletcher," she says, her voice devoid of warmth. "To risk your ship and your crew for strangers." Fletcher flushes slightly. "We are not strangers, Mistress Cooper. We are all brothers in this cause. I heard what you did at the mill. I heard how you escaped the barn. Your courage inspires us all. When Silas got word to me about what had happened, I knew I had to act." Quote, "Your blood runs cold," he said. Silas got word to him. But Silas isn't hiding himself, his every move watched. How could he have gotten word to Fletcher? And how would Fletcher know you escaped the barn? The official story, the one Ward was spreading, was that the traitors were still at large in the woods. Only a handful of people knew the full truth. Theodosia's eyes narrow. You see it too. Fletcher is a man of the town, of counting houses and wharves. Yet his boots, peeking from under his coat, are caked with fresh, dark mud. Not the grime of the cobbled streets, but the thick, black mud of the deep woods. The kind of mud you find around a certain lumber mill, or a certain abandoned barn. "You are too kind," Theodosia says, her voice dangerously soft. "But we have matters to attend to here. We can't abandon our post." "Abandon your post?" Fletcher sputters, his anxious facade slipping into something more like frustration. "Your post is a hangman's noose. You are no good to the cause dead. You must leave." For the good of the movement. His insistence is suddenly too strong, his concern too sharp. "We will consider your offer," Theodosia says. A clear dismissal. She turns her back on him, a calculated insult, and begins examining a bolt of wool as if it's the most important thing in the world. Fletcher stands there, flustered, his lifeline rejected. He looks at Abigail, at Jabez, appealing for an ally. "Think on it," he urges, his voice tight. "My captain will wait at the long wharf until just before dawn." "Don't be foolish." He gives a stiff, jerky bow and lets Abigail lead him out of the room. The jingle of the shop bell announces his departure. The moment he is gone, the room erupts. "Are you mad, Theo?" Jabez hisses, standing up so quickly he almost knocks over the ink pot. "That was our salvation, a ship. We could be free of this." Quote, "It was a trap," Theodosia says, her back still to him. "You see traps everywhere." Jabez counters, his voice rising with desperation. "In every shadow, in every offer of help, you trust no one." Quote, "I trust my eyes," she says, finally turning. Her face is grim. He had mud on his boots. Creek mud. And he knew he escaped the barn. Who told him that, Jabez? Silas? Or Hiram Ward? Quote, the question lands like a stone, and the room falls silent. The beautiful, simple solution is now tainted, revealed as a potential death sentence. Was Fletcher a patriot trying to help, or was he a tool of Ward sent to lure you out into the open? The good intent. The name itself now sounds like a cruel joke. "She's right," Finn says quietly from the corner. He hasn't moved, but his easygoing demeanor is gone. "I know Fletcher. He lost a ship to the British last year, it's true. But I also know he's been in debt to Ward's Mercantile ever since. Deep in debt." Quote, the final piece clicks into place. A man squeezed by debt, offered a pardon and a heavy purse in exchange for delivering 3 fugitives. It's a story as old as betrayal itself. Jabez sinks onto a crate, his face ashen. The hope has been ripped away, leaving a wound far deeper than the despair that came before. The network, your only shield, is compromised. The enemy is not just the soldier in the street or the shopkeeper on the porch. He is the man who calls you brother. He is wearing the face of a friend. You are no longer sure who to trust. The sands of loyalty have shifted beneath your feet, and you are all sinking. The silence that follows Finn's revelation is heavier than any trapdoor. It is the sound of trust shattering. Fletcher's friendly, anxious face twists in your memory into a leering mask, his offer of salvation a baited hook. Jabez sits on the crate, his body slack, a puppet with its strings cut. The ship, the good intent, was a mirage in the desert of your fear, and its disappearance leaves the landscape barren and hostile. The world has shrunk again, not just to this room, but to the small, shrinking circle of people you can trust. And even here, the air is thick with doubt. Theodosia is the first to move. She walks to the basin of dirty water and plunges her hands into it, scrubbing at the phantom mud of the forest. The motion is methodical. "Angry, so that's his game," she says, her voice a low growl. "Not a frontal assault. He wants to make us tear ourselves apart, turn the network against itself, make us so afraid of shadows that we run right into his arms." "It's working," Jabez whispers, his voice hollow. "Fletcher, he bought my father's legal books. He gave me sweets when I was a boy. If he can be turned..." He doesn't finish the thought, but it hangs in the air. Anyone can be turned. "He was in debt," Finn says, spitting a fishbone onto the floor. "Debt is a better persuader than patriotism, for some. Ward holds the purse strings in this town. That makes him the master of more men than the king." The conversation dies. You are adrift. The grand cause of the common thread has devolved into a squalid game of cat and mouse in a town where every face could be a mask. The fire that lit the way out of the miller's barn has dwindled to a cold, smoking ember. You watch Theodosia, the impatient heart of this operation, now forced into a waiting game where the rules are written by her enemies. You can see the frustration eating at her, the desperate need for action warring with the paralyzing reality of your situation. Hours pass. Abigail tends to her shop, her face a serene mask for the customers who jingle the bell, her movements calm and measured. But each time she returns to the back room, you see the strain in her eyes. Finn disappears into the warren of the city, promising to listen for whispers on the docks, leaving you in the cloying, lavender-scented prison. It is late in the afternoon when he returns. The sun slants through the grimy window, casting long shadows that look like bars. Finn doesn't knock this time. He slips in the back door like a stray cat, and he is not alone. He carries a long, cloth-wrapped parcel, and his face wears an expression you haven't seen before. It isn't cynicism or mercenary amusement. It's something akin to awe, mixed with a healthy dose of fear. The sea serpent made it out of Boston an hour ahead of the British patrols, he says, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. He lays the parcel on the cutting table. The cargo was more than just muskets. He unwraps the cloth. Inside is a stack of freshly printed broadsheets, the ink still smelling sharp and new. The paper is coarse, the type bold and uneven. But it's the words at the top that seize the air from your lungs. In Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. You stare at the words, United States of America. It is the first time you have ever seen them written down. It feels like seeing a mythical beast in the flesh. It is real. Read it, Theodosia says, her voice tight. She is looking at Jabez. Jabez stares at the paper, his hands trembling again, but not with fear. He picks up a sheet as if it were a holy relic. His eyes scan the opening lines, and a choked sound escapes his throat. He clears his throat, and when he speaks, his voice is a whisper that grows stronger with every word, the courtroom clerk finding his footing on the bedrock of the law. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another. Single quote. Quote. He reads on, and the stuffy back room of the draper's shop falls away. The stacks of linen and velvet transform into the pillars of a new world. The words fill the space, echoing with a power that transcends the cheap paper and smudged ink. Words like self-evident, unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They are the very ideas whispered in the lumber mill, the concepts argued over in taverns and pamphlets, now forged into a single defiant creed. Jabez's voice swells as he reaches the list of grievances against the king. With each charge, he has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. The lines of worry on his face harden into lines of anger. This is no longer an abstract philosophical argument. It is a catalogue of their own suffering, a justification for their fear and their fight. He is not just reading, he is testifying. Finally, he reaches the end. His voice is steady now, ringing with a conviction you thought had been permanently extinguished. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Single quote, quote. He sets the paper down. The silence that follows is different from the one that came before. It is not empty, it is full, humming with the immensity of what you have just heard. You are no longer criminals skulking in the shadows. You are citizens of a nation that has just declared its own existence. The weight of that is immense, terrifying, and glorious. Every action you have taken, the secret printing, the flight through the woods, the hiding in cellars, has just been retroactively defined as the work of nation-building. And every one of you is now, without question, a traitor to the crown marked for death. Our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor, Abigail repeats softly, her hand resting on her ledger, her book of whispers. She understands. Her small acts of espionage are now part of that pledge. Finn, the hard-bitten cynic, stares at the paper, his jaw tight. Damn fools, he mutters, but there is no heat in it. They went and signed their own death warrants. All of them. He picks up the sheet, his eyes scanning the list of names at the bottom. Hancock, Adams, Franklin, damn fools, the lot of them. He says it again, but his voice is thick with a grudging, profound respect. You look at Theodosia. A slow, fierce smile is spreading across her face. It is the first genuine smile you have seen on her since the night at the mill. It is not a friendly smile. It is the smile of a hunter who has been given a clear shot at a beast that has been stalking her for months. The declaration has not washed away the danger. It has illuminated it, clarified it, given it a name and a purpose. Her impatience, so long thwarted and turned inward into paranoia, now has a direction. It is a weapon once more. So, she says, her voice vibrating with a powerful, renewed energy, we are no longer rebels. We are soldiers. She looks around the room, her gaze resting on each of you in turn, not as frightened fugitives, but as comrades. Fletcher was a trap. Ward is still hunting us. Nothing has changed. And everything has changed. Quote. She picks up a sheet of the declaration, holding it as if it were the deed to the entire continent. This, she says, tapping the paper, is our bill of sale. This is our authority. It is the only one we need." The fear that had paralyzed Jabez has been transmuted. He stands straighter, his eyes alight with a fire you've never seen. "She's right," he says, his voice resonating with newfound strength. "Ward's power comes from the king's law. He uses it to twist us, to make us criminals. But that law is no longer our own. We answer to a new authority now. We are not the ones who are breaking the law. He is. He is an agent of a foreign power, operating on our soil." It is a stunning reversal, a reframing of their entire reality based on the words on that paper. You are not the hunted anymore. You are the vanguard of a new government, routing out spies and enemies within your own borders. The shift in the room is a physical force. Hope, which had seemed like a foolish luxury moments before, is now a practical tool. The network is not just a conspiracy. It is an embryonic government in exile. Abigail's intelligence is not gossip. It is statecraft. Finn's ship is not just for smuggling. It is a navy in its infancy. Jabez is not a forger. He is a statesman. And Theodosia, she is not a trapper hiding from the law. She is a soldier on a battlefield that happens to be her own home. Her motivation, once a simple burning impatience for freedom, is now forged into the sharp, unwavering point of a spear. "Abigail," Theodosia says, her voice crisp with command. "Those lists of yours, the patrol schedules, the names of Ward's debtors, we need copies." "Jabez is already making them," Abigail says, a new confidence in her own voice. "Good." Theodosia nods. She turns to Finn. "Your ship, the Sea Serpent. Is your captain one of us?" Quote, "He sails for coin," Finn says, shrugging, but his eyes are alight with the spark of a new, more interesting game. "But he hates the British more than he loves the king's shilling. He can be persuaded." Quote, "Persuade him," Theodosia orders. "We need his cargo. Those muskets are not going to Boston. They are staying here." She looks at you. At Jabez, at the small, determined group in the back of this shop. "Ward thinks he has us trapped in this town. He thinks he's the spider. But a spider's web is useless if you set the whole forest on fire." She holds up the declaration. "This is the torch. Now, let's go find some kindling." Quote, "The air in the room is electric, charged with the thunderous potential of the words still echoing in the silence. The world outside the grimy window is the same, but you are all irrevocably changed within it. You are no longer cowering. You are plotting. The fear has not vanished. It has been repurposed, honed into a weapon." Theodosia moves with a swift, decisive energy, the trapping of a predator finally unleashed. She spreads one of Abigail's meticulously copied patrol schedules on the table. Its neat columns, a map of the enemy's veins. "Ward feels safe," she says, her finger tracing a route. "He patrols the main roads, the gates, the wharves. He expects us to run. He doesn't expect us to be hunting him." Jabez, a new man in his cousin's old skin, leans over the paper, his mind for legal precedent now applied to guerrilla warfare. He uses debt as a weapon. Fletcher is proof. According to Abigail's ledger, he also holds the deeds for the tannery and 2 of the fishing boats in the harbor. Men who are financially ruined are easily controlled. "Then we cut his purse strings," Finn interjects, leaning against a bolt of silk, his cynical facade replaced by a look of keen, professional interest. "My men can have a conversation with the fishermen. Remind them who their neighbors are. And the tanner hates Ward. He just needs a reason to feel brave." "A reason and a weapon," Theodosia says, her eyes glinting. "Which brings us to your ship. The muskets, Finn. We need them." Quote, "Securing them will be risky," Finn warns. "The long wharf is crawling with redcoats after dark, and my captain won't unload his most valuable cargo without a hefty down payment." Quote, "His payment," Jabez says, a startling new authority in his voice, "will be a stake in a free country. And if that's not enough, tell him that Hiram Ward knows about his cargo, and that Ward will be busy tonight." Quote, "It is a stunningly bold lie, a piece of strategic deception that would have been unthinkable from the terrified clerk you hid with in the woods." You see a flicker of deep pride in Theodosia's eyes. The plan crystallizes. Finn and his sailors will create a diversion at the far end of the docks, drawing the main patrol away. Under that cover, you, Theodosia, and Jabez will get to the Sea Serpent, secure a crate of muskets, and disappear into the warren of alleys before anyone is the wiser. It is audacious. It is suicidal. It is the only path forward. Abigail begins to bundle cheese and bread, her practical mind already on the logistics of a long night. Jabez makes one final, clean copy of a list of Ward's known associates. The air hums with a tense, purposeful energy. And then, through the floorboards, you hear it. A distant sound from the street. A woman's scream, sharp and terrified, cut short. You all freeze. Every nerve ending ignites. The sound is followed by the splintering crash of a door being smashed from its hinges. And then, the guttural shouts of men. The sounds are coming from the direction of the blacksmith's forge. "Silas!" Abigail breathes, her face draining of all color. Theodosia is at the curtained peephole in an instant. Her body goes rigid. "Red coats," she whispers, her voice a serrated edge of ice. "They're at the forge. They're dragging him out." Quote, "You feel a cold dread creep up your spine, suffocating the fragile hope that had just begun to bloom. You are trapped, helpless, listening to the destruction you have brought upon a good man's house. You hear a child's cry, a piercing wail of terror. Silas's boy, the same boy who delivered the note, his eyes wide with a thrill that has now curdled into abject horror. Then comes the sound of a fight. Silas's deep-throated roar of fury, the meaty thud of fists on flesh, the clang of a hammer not striking an anvil but something softer. A single deafening musket shot cracks through the afternoon air, silencing the birds, silencing the shouting, silencing everything. The silence that follows is the most terrible sound of all. It stretches, taut, and unbearable. No one in the room breathes. You wait for another sound, another shout, anything. But there is nothing but the sudden, awful stillness of a life extinguished. Jabez stumbles back, his hand over his mouth, a choked sob escaping him. "No," he whispers. "Oh, God, no!" Theodosia does not move from the window. Her shoulders are shaking, not with sobs, but with a silent, consuming rage. You watch as her grief is calcified, layer by layer, into something terrible and hard. She put him in the crosshairs. Her plan, her fight, her cause. The price was Silas's life, paid in full on the dusty ground, in front of his own forge, in front of his own family. The ink on the declaration in her pocket suddenly feels like blood. "They're taking his wife and son," she reports, her voice flat and dead, scraped clean of all emotion. "They're putting them in a cart. This is the human cost, stripped of all glory. It is not a noble sacrifice on a battlefield. It is a blacksmith murdered in the street while his family watches. It is the pledge of our lives made real, and the reality is ugly, brutal, and sickening. The revolution, which felt so righteous and grand moments ago, now feels like a plague that you have carried into the heart of your own town." Finn, the hard-nosed sailor, crosses himself, his face grim. "Ward's work," he says. He didn't just want Silas. He wanted to make an example. He wanted everyone to see what happens when you help us. Quote, "The door to the shop jingles. The sound makes you all flinch, a Pavlovian response to terror. Abigail, her face a pale, trembling mask, forces herself to move, to smooth her apron, to answer. You hear her speak in a strained, high-pitched voice to a customer. The mundane transaction, a yard of ribbon, a few coins exchanged, is a grotesque parody of normalcy against the backdrop of the murder that just occurred down the street. When she returns, she collapses onto a stool, her composure shattering. They're saying he was a traitor, she weeps softly. That he was hiding weapons for rebels. Mrs. Gable saw the whole thing, she said. Israel Basad, he be duahalami shaiko. She said Silas didn't give them a chance. He took one of them down before they shot him. Quote, a small, cold comfort. He did not die begging, he died fighting. But the comfort is thin, a threadbare blanket against a blizzard of grief and guilt. You look at Jabez. He is sunk to the floor, his back against a crate, his face buried in his hands. The statesman is gone, replaced by the broken man from the root cellar. This is our fault, he chokes out, the words muffled. I killed him. We killed him. For what? For words on a piece of paper? Quote, the declaration lies on the table, its bold promises looking like a cruel mockery. The pursuit of happiness. Tell that to Silas's son. Theodosia finally turns from the window. Her face is a terrifying mask. Her friendly eyes are now cold, dead stones. The impatience is gone, burned away. In its place is a resolve so absolute it is frightening to behold. She walks to Jabez and pulls him to his feet. Her grip is like iron. Yes, she says, her voice low and trembling with a fury that seems to be the only thing holding her together. We killed him. I killed him. I asked him for help, and it got him killed. Do you understand that, Jabez? We carry that now. That is our debt. She shoves a sheet of the declaration into his chest. You dishonor him by cowering on the floor. You make his death mean nothing. We pledged our sacred honor. Was that just a word to you? It wasn't to him. He honored his pledge. The only way we can honor him is to see this through. The only way his sacrifice has any meaning is if we win. Her words are brutal, merciless, but they are exactly what he needs to hear. You see the conflict in his eyes, the tidal war between utter despair and a desperate need for redemption. He looks from Theodosia's unforgiving face to the paper in his hand, his gaze falling on the final damning words. Our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Slowly, painstakingly, he straightens up. He wipes the tears from his face with the back of his sleeve, leaving a streak of grime. The brokenness is still there, but it is being welded back together with anger and a terrible newfound purpose. You're right, he says, his voice hoarse but steady. Running makes us cowards. Hiding makes us complicit. His death will not be for nothing. He looks at the papers he so carefully copied. This is his eulogy. This is his monument. The atmosphere in the room has shifted again. The righteous fire is gone. The grief is still raw, but in its place is a cold, hard determination. The war is no longer a glorious cause. It is a grim, bloody necessity. It is a debt that must be paid. Theodosia turns to Finn. The plan has changed, she says, her voice like the clicking of a hammer being cocked. A diversion is not enough. Ward is trying to terrorize this town into silence. We are going to scream back. Your men. The fisherman, the tanner, anyone who owes Ward a grudge and has a spine. Tell them what happened to Silas. Tell them who's next. We are not just taking the muskets tonight. We are going to use them. Quote, her words are a declaration of open war in the streets of their town. It is a desperate, final gamble. The price of freedom, you now see, is impossibly high. Silas has already paid it. And as you stand in the fading light of the blood-stained afternoon, you know with a chilling certainty that before this night is over, more of you will be asked to do the same. The grim determination in the room is a fragile shield against the wave of grief threatening to drown you all. The air is thick, with the coppery scent of shed blood and the bitter smoke of a life stolen. The plan to seize the muskets, once a bold stroke of rebellion, now feels like a desperate, vengeful vendetta. This is no longer about lighting a fire. It's about surviving the inferno. Before you can act, the war comes to you. A heavy, rhythmic pounding begins at the front door of the shop, the sound of a musket butt striking wood. It is not a knock, it is an assault. In the name of the king, open this door, a voice bellows, rough and laced with authority. We are searching for the traitors, Theodosia Cooper and Jabez Bell. Your names, spoken aloud, are a death sentence delivered to your doorstep. Panic, cold and sharp, lances through you. Abigail stifles a scream, her hand flying to her mouth. Finn curses, his hand instinctively going to the knife in his belt. There is no escape. The back alley will be watched. But Jabez, the man remade by grief and rage, does not panic. He moves with a shocking, newfound clarity. He grabs the copies of Abigail's lists and the declaration, shoving them deep inside his coat. The cellar, he hisses, pointing to a trapdoor hidden beneath a heavy bolt of canvas. Abigail, your smuggling tunnel. Abigail nods, her hands trembling as she pulls back the fabric. It leads to the cooperage 3 doors down, but they'll search there too. Quote, we won't be there for long, Theodosia says. Her face is a mask of cold fury, her eyes fixed on the splintering front door. She is not looking at the escape route. She is looking at the enemy. She grabs a heavy pair of iron shears from the cutting table. Its 2 blades a crude makeshift weapon. Get them out of here, Finn. Go, now. What about you ask, your voice a choked whisper. Ward wants me, she says, her voice chillingly calm. He's making this personal. So am I. I'm going to give him a trail to follow, away from them, away from the docks. Go. That's an order. There is no time to argue. Finn shoves you and a near catatonic Abigail toward the open trapdoor. Jabez hesitates, his eyes locked on his cousin. You see 1,000 unspoken words pass between them. A lifetime of loyalty, a shared legacy of rebellion, and a terrible final farewell. Make it count, Theo, he says, his voice thick with emotion. Then he turns and disappears into the darkness below. You follow, and Finn pulls the trapdoor shut just as the shop's front door gives way with a final explosive crash. You are plunged into the musty dark of the tunnel, the shouts of the redcoats above you muffled by the earth. You scramble through the narrow, damp passage, the sounds of the hunt fading behind you. You don't look back. You can only pray that Theodosia's sacrifice buys you the time you need. The tunnel deposits you in the sawdust-choked cellar of the cooperage. The noise from the street is louder here. You hear a town crier, his voice ringing with a dreadful proclamation. 50 crowns for the traitors Cooper and Bell! 10 crowns for any who aid them. By order of Magistrate Davies on the authority of Hiram Ward. Quote, the town is now a cage, and every citizen has been deputized as a jailer. Finn peeks through his cellar grate. They're sealing the wharf. Soldiers on every corner. Our plan is dust. He slams his fist into a barrel. She threw her life away for nothing. No, Jabez says. He stands in the center of the cellar, the papers clutched in his hand like a shield. She bought us an opportunity. Ward is hunting her now. His focus is on the chase. He'll be arrogant. He'll be overconfident. He turns to Finn, his eyes burning with an intense, almost mad light. I need you to get a message to him. Jabez unfolds a blank sheet of paper, the one you saw him save. Using a piece of charcoal from the floor, he begins to write. His hand, surprisingly steady. The plan that pours out of him is born of pure desperation and legal cunning. He is not writing as himself. He is writing as Master Fletcher, the traitorous merchant. The note is a masterpiece of deception. It tells Ward that Fletcher has the fugitives, Cooper and Bell, cornered. It confirms they fail for the ship trap, but it adds, Theodosia has a document, a list of every Patriot sympathizer from here to Boston, a list she was trying to smuggle out. She's willing to trade it and their own lives for safe passage for her cousin. The note suggests a meeting point, the old, abandoned salt warehouse at the end of the fish wharf, a place known to be dilapidated and deserted. Come alone, the note concludes. The trapper is spooked and will bolt if she sees soldiers. Quote, it is the perfect bait, designed to appeal to Ward's every vice, his greed for total control, his arrogance in his own cleverness, and his personal vendetta against Theodosia. The prize of the master list would be irresistible to him. He won't come alone, Finn says, reading the note over Jabez's shoulder. I know, Jabez replies, his voice grim, but he will come himself, and he'll want to keep his guards at a distance to maintain the illusion. That's all she'll need. He is talking about Theodosia. He is betting her life on the hope that she is not caught, that she will somehow see this trap being set and understand her role in it. It is a gamble of breathtaking faith. Finn looks at Jabez, a long, searching look, and then gives a single, curt nod. He takes the note, slips out a back way, and melts into the growing dusk, leaving you and Jabez in the suffocating silence of the cellar. The wait is an eternity. You are trapped in a box of your own making, unable to do anything but hope that two desperate plans hatched in chaos will somehow converge. An hour passes. Then another. The sky outside the grate turns from bruised purple to inky black. Finally, you hear a sound. A soft, two-note whistle from the alley. A mourning dove. Theodosia's signal. You scramble out of the cellar to find her leaning against the wall, a shadow among shadows. She is breathing heavily, her clothes are torn, and a dark, bloody gash runs along her forearm, but she is alive. And she is not alone. Behind her stand the tanner and two of the fishermen whose boats Ward owned. They are armed with cudgels and gutting knives, their faces grim and set. They've been chasing my ghost all over town, she says, a humorless smile twisting her lips. I heard the crier. I heard the bounty. She looks at Jabez. What have you done? Quote. He shows her a copy of the note. She reads it, her expression unreadable in the dark. You expect her to be furious at the risk he's taken. Instead, she nods slowly. The salt warehouse. Good. It's a rat's maze in there. I can work with that. She looks at the men she has gathered. Ward will bring at least 4 guards. We deal with them first. Quietly. You move through the back alleys of the locked-down town, a small, desperate army on its final march. Theodosia leads, her movements silent and sure, her knowledge of the town's hidden paths as profound as her knowledge of the forest. You arrive at the salt warehouse, a massive, skeletal structure looming over the black water of the harbor. The air is thick with the smell of brine and decay. As Jabez predicted, Ward arrives not alone, but with 4 redcoats who hang back as he approaches the warehouse door, their muskets held at the ready. Hiram Ward steps into the pale moonlight, his face a mask of smug triumph. He is about to personally pluck the fruit of his victory. That's when Theodosia's trap springs. A rope you didn't even see tightens, and a net loaded with heavy iron chains swings down from the eaves, catching 2 of the soldiers in a clattering, tangling mess. From the shadows on the rooftop, the tanner and a fisherman drop heavy sacks of sand onto the other 2 guards, who crumple to the ground without a sound. It is over in 5 seconds of brutal, silent efficiency. Ward spins around, his face contorting in shock and rage, his hand flying to the pistol in his belt, but he is too late. Theodosia steps out of the warehouse doorway, her bloodied arm wrapped in a strip of cloth, the iron shears held loosely in her hand. Jabez is right behind her, his face pale but resolute. "It seems you've misplaced your guards, Hiram," Theodosia says, her voice dangerously calm. Ward's eyes dart around, realizing he is alone, cut off. His arrogance curdles into the cornered rat fury you saw at the miller's barn. "You," he spits, his gaze fixing on Jabez, the sniveling clerk. "You think this changes anything? I own this town. The law is on my side." Quote, "Your king's law is an ocean away," Jabez says, stepping forward. He is unarmed, but he stands as if clad in armor. "We have a new law now." He pulls the copy of the Declaration from his coat, "and it finds you guilty of plundering our seas, ravaging our coasts, burning our towns, and destroying the lives of our people. It finds you guilty of the murder of Silas, the blacksmith." "That blacksmith was a traitor," Ward sneers, raising his pistol, leveling it at Jabez's chest. "And you will die like one too." Quote, he cocks the hammer. The click is deafeningly loud in the sudden silence. But before his finger can tighten on the trigger, something whistles through the air. The shears, thrown underhand by Theodosia with the same deadly practiced flick she used with the stone at the barn. The heavy iron weapon spins end over end, striking Ward's wrist with a sickening crack of bone. The pistol clatters to the cobblestones. Ward screams, a high, thin sound of agony, clutching his shattered arm. He stumbles back, his eyes wide with disbelief and pain. He is no longer the master of the town, the spider at the center of the web. He is just a man, broken and bleeding on a dirty wharf. Theodosia is on him in a flash, the point of a fisherman's gutting knife pressed against his throat. "It's over, Ward," she breathes, her face inches from his, her eyes 2 chips of ice. "Your reign is over." You stand there, your heart hammering against your ribs, as the fishermen secure the whimpering shopkeeper and the groaning, incapacitated soldiers. Jabez picks up the fallen pistol, his hands steady. He looks not at Ward, but at the warehouse, where Finn and his men are now silently unloading a long, heavy crate from a boat that has slipped up to the pier in the chaos. The muskets. The gamble has paid off. In one swift, brutal stroke, you have cut the head from the snake and armed the rebellion. The final battle for this town is over before it truly began. You have won. But as you look at Theodosia's grim, merciless face, and at the bloody shears lying on the ground, you know that the price of this victory will leave a scar on you all, a shadow of doubt and sorrow that no declaration, no matter how glorious, can ever fully erase. Hiram Ward's scream curdles into a wet, gasping sob. He cradles his broken wrist, his face a grotesque mask of shock and agony, his fine brocade waistcoat stained with his own blood. The world, which moments ago was his personal chessboard, has been violently overturned. The power he wielded with such smug certainty lies shattered on the cobblestones along with his pistol. You watch as the tanner binds his hands with a length of rope. The movement's rough and devoid of pity. Ward offers no resistance, his manipulative energy extinguished, leaving only a pathetic, whimpering shell. Theodosia stands over him, her breath coming in slow, controlled plumes in the chill night air. The gutting knife is steady in her hand, its point still aimed at Ward's throat, but the killing rage has subsided from her eyes. It has been replaced by a cold, weary disgust. She does not look like a triumphant victor. She looks like someone who has just put down a rabid animal, a necessary but soul-soiling task. "What do we do with him?" the tanner growls, giving the rope a vicious tug. "The harbor is deep." Quote, It's the question that hangs over you all, heavy and sharp as a headsman's axe. A part of you, the part that remembers Silas's son crying in the street, wants to agree. An eye for an eye. A life for a life. It would be simple. It would be just. But Jabez steps forward, his shadow falling over the captured shopkeeper. He looks down at the man who haunted his every waking moment, the man who nearly broke him. You see no hatred in his expression, only a profound, sorrowful gravity. He takes the declaration from his coat, the paper crackling in the sudden quiet. "No," Jabez says, and his voice carries with a newfound weight of command. "We are not him. We don't drag men from their homes and execute them in the street. We don't rule by terror." He crouches, bringing himself level with Ward's tear-streaked face. "Listen to me, Hiram. Your king's authority ends tonight. A new one begins. One of laws, not of men. You will be held, and you will be tried. Not for treason against a distant crown, but for murder, for the murder of Silas. You will have a trial, you will have a defense, and you will face a jury of your peers. The very rights you sought to deny us, we now grant to you. That is the difference between us." Quote, "It is the most devastating blow of the night. Jabez does not offer him a quick death, but something far worse for a man like Ward, irrelevance. He strips him of his power, his authority, and his ideology, leaving him subject to a system he cannot comprehend or control." Ward stares at him, his mouth working silently, his eyes filled with the uncomprehending terror of a man whose God has just been proven false. Theodosia slowly lowers the knife. She gives a curt nod to the fisherman. "Lock him in the warehouse with his men. They can contemplate the dawn of their new era from a cage." As the men drag the sputtering shopkeeper away, Finn approaches, wiping his hands on a rag. The last of the musket crates is being carried into the shadows of the alley. "That's it," he says. "The sea serpent is already pulling anchor. What now, General?" He looks at Theodosia, a hint of grudging respect in his mercenary tone. She looks out at the dark water, at the receding silhouette of Finn's ship disappearing into the vast black expanse of the sea. "Now," she says, her voice rough with exhaustion, "we grieve. And then we prepare. This was one man in one town. The real war is just beginning." The small band of rebels dissolves back into the night as silently as it formed. The tanner and the fisherman, now armed with muskets and a purpose, melt away to guard their homes and spread the news. Finn claps Jabez on the shoulder, a gesture of unexpected solidarity, before he too vanishes. You are left on the wharf, with Theodosia and Jabez standing in the aftermath, the scent of salt and blood heavy in the air. The adrenaline fades, leaving behind a bone-deep weariness and the cold, heavy stone of what was lost. Jabez stares at the spot where Silas fell, a place only he can see in his mind. "I should have been faster," he whispers, the words ragged. "I should have seen the trap at the barn. I should have—" "Stop," Theodosia says, her voice softer than you've heard it all night. She places a hand on his arm, her grip firm. The bloody gash on her own forearm is a stark testament to the night's violence. There is no should have. There is only what is. And what will be. We carry him with us now. We don't leave him behind by wishing it were different. She looks at you, her eyes holding a flicker of their old friendliness, filtered through a new, somber wisdom. "You were there at the mill," she says. "You saw how this began, in mud and ink and fear. Don't ever forget that. This new nation they're all shouting about. This is its real birthday. Not the day they signed that paper, but the night men like Silas died for it." Quote, "You walk back through the now quiet streets. The redcoat patrols are gone, either captured, fled, or hiding, their authority broken. Windows that were once shuttered tight are now cracked open, with furtive, hopeful faces peering out. The news is spreading on the wind, a whisper of freedom passing from house to house. You feel the town holding its breath, waiting for the sun, waiting to see if this new reality will hold. You don't return to Abigail's shop. It is no longer safe. Instead, Theodosia leads you to a small, dusty room above the cooperage, a place of sanctuary earned with blood. There is a single cot, a table, and a window that looks out over the harbor. The three of you sit in silence, listening to the slow turning of the night into day. You watch as the first, tentative fingers of dawn touch the horizon, painting the black water in shades of gray and soft rose. The new day arrives not with a thunderclap, but with a gentle, inexorable slowness. It illuminates the fishing boats bobbing in the harbor, the gulls crying as they circle the masts, the smoking chimney of a baker already at his work. It is an ordinary morning, yet you know with a certainty that settles deep in your soul that nothing will ever be ordinary again. Jabez has the declaration spread on the table. In the growing light, he reads it again, not aloud this time, but to himself, his finger tracing the words that have become his new scripture. He is no longer just a clerk of the court. He is a founder, a lawgiver, his personal transformation, a mirror of the nation's own violent birth. Theodosia stands by the window, her back to you, cleaning the blood and grime from the iron shears with a piece of oiled cloth. Her movements are patient, deliberate. She is preparing her tools, preparing herself. The war is not over. This is just a pause, a breath taken before the next battle. Her impatient heart is still beating, but it now beats in time with a larger, slower rhythm, the rhythm of a long and difficult struggle. You feel a profound sense of peace settle over you, a quiet accomplishment that has nothing to do with victory and everything to do with endurance. You survived. You witnessed it all. You remember the slick mud at the mill, the intoxicating smell of the ink, the weight of the freshly printed pamphlets. You remember the terror in the woods, the desperate flight to the icy creek, the stifling darkness of the root cellar. You remember the hope kindled by a sheet of paper in a draper's shop, and the despair of watching a good man die for it. These things are a part of you now. History is no longer a story in a book. It is the mud on your boots, the phantom scent of wood smoke in your clothes, the memory of a blacksmith's courage. You saw how a simple, impatient idea that people should be free could topple a tyrant and forge a new world from the wreckage. You look out the window at the rising sun. It catches on the water, turning the harbor to liquid gold. The path ahead is shrouded in the fog of war and uncertainty. There will be more fighting, more fear, more loss. But for the first time, there is a path. You are standing at the very beginning of it. You are a part of the common thread, a witness to the painful, terrifying, and magnificent birth of a nation. And in the quiet light of this new morning, that feels like enough.